Jacqui, congratulations on the new studio. And, thanks again for being part of Headshots Matter. We're really grateful to have members like you. Thanks for doing this interview as well. So listen, we've talked off air about, your years working as a photographer, but, I understand, and I've seen, lots of your work. You focused on weddings. You have had tremendous amount of photography experience. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I actually, well, how I started in my photography career first, which was weddings. I actually started in press. I used to do press photography, and then ended up doing weddings, which a lot of photographers probably will find themselves doing. And then maybe you want to do it for some, extra income. But, I think I got pretty good at it. And I got a really good client base. And it sort of just took over really, and that can happen, that it can just take over without you really wanting it to, because it takes a lot of time and effort. So it's hard to do that alongside something else sometimes. So that's where I got started. That's how I was shooting weddings, really just as a kind of a way of just having money coming in, and then the money coming in took over the whole business basically. So that's what happened, and that's not
Yeah.
unusual.
So it just caught fire.
Did really, it did take off, and I blinked, and suddenly I turned around and there had been many years gone by. It was like, oh my God. I think and then, your age changes, so you get older and then you're the same age as the parents at the wedding, and then that feels a bit weird. So the dynamics change. Um, and, but that's nice too. But yeah, it's sort of, it has a shelf life. I think I still do them, but I don't do a lot of them.
Yeah. Now tell us about transitioning to headshots. What's that been like, and how's it going for you with the new studio?
With the transition to headshots came from lockdown. Like a lot of photographers, I couldn't work. So, and I found on the days where literally had nothing to do and I was opening up photography books, there was always a portrait photography book I would open up, and I had a moment one day. I was like, but this is what I fell in love with. This is what I wanted to do 30 years ago. Why did I come away from this? And then I started doing remote portraits, which was a kind of a
Oh,
thing
interesting.
during lockdown. So I did 52 remote portraits to kind of honor
Oh,
one of my really good friends that died of COVID. And I wanted to reach out to people who were on their own around the world, or not necessarily on their own, but anyway, I photographed 52 people around the world. So it was just their faces and their phones and me shouting at them to move to the left and move to the right or try find the light. And I fell back in completely in love with one face and me, and and that's where it came from. And I spoke to a friend of mine and said, I really want to see what I can do with this. And my friend Jim, and he said, well, I've got the studio. Why don't you come and work in my studio? So, and then that happened, and then it sort of snowballed from there, really.
that's a really interesting project. Trying to do
Mm.
that over, the pandemic, and
Mm.
being able to do it sort of like remote. I find that completely fascinating,
Oh,
and
it's
how it kind of struck a chord with you.
mm.
You know,
It
yeah,
really did. It reignited something in me. And because how it would work, if I tell you briefly, you use an app on their phone. This was the Shutter app I used to use, which is
oh,
a
interesting.
great couple that invented this over lockdown, a photographer and her husband. And so I would access their phone just for that period of the shoot. And
Yeah.
they don't get the photos. The photos aren't going to download onto their phone. They're downloading to this app that I have access to.
Oh,
But
really
I would
interesting.
come onto the shoot. I would never have seen most of their houses, probably 95%. And I would ask them to walk me around. So they're
Yeah,
holding me like that in the phone. And I'm just looking to see where there's light coming in. And
amazing.
in some cases, I had them sitting on the floor. They might be up high, or they're in weird places. That did like Tokyo. I did New York
Wow.
State and Australia. And it was amazing. Then to find out all the different experiences
Yeah.
that they were all having at the same time as well was amazing.
So I think that's really something because like you're in the midst of, lockdown. You were unable to see the world, and yet
Mm.
you managed to see a glimpse into people's homes and give
Yeah,
them an experience that was, really different.
it was, and of
Yeah.
course, some people were doing okay because obviously everyone had a different lockdown in different parts of the world, and then some people were struggling, and it was quite
Yeah.
humbling to speak to them and to see that this was a really difficult time in their lives, and this was just a little
Yeah.
window in, and for them
Yeah.
just a little chance to communicate with somebody and vent maybe a little bit. It was really special actually. I think it's a project. I finished it and I've kind of put it away, and I think it's a project I'll come back to later when
Yeah.
I think I need a bit of distance from it because that whole time is
Yeah.
so strange that I think I'll come back to it, and then I would like to publish it, and that's something that we're looking at for the future.
It sounds like, this whole experience with this sort of remote headshots thing, it was good for you in terms of your own traumas to do with COVID. And
Mm.
then, of course, it was good for those that you reached out
Yeah.
and met. I think
Yeah.
that's fabulous.
Well,
Yeah.
because I think
What a
portrait
journey.
photography can be that. It can be that. You know what I mean? It's a
Yeah.
connection. It's a conversation, literally, with metaphorically and literally, like with the camera and the person. But also,
Yeah.
you actually are speaking and learning about the person. And I think portrait photography. Everyone who will ever have a session will always say to you that they got something out of it, really. So double that, really, or maybe triple that with this experience, with the fact that it was remote and we were all going through a very strange
Yeah.
time in our lives.
But I mean, I would say, and that's something that you definitely do with your clients is you capture their individuality, regardless of whether it's remote in person. So like share us your approach to your sessions. It can be about what you just talked about, but of course, like now we're back in person,
Yeah.
how do you kind of tailor it for each session?
I mean, my approach to capturing the personalities is I kind of feel it comes very natural to me, and that I'm Irish, if you didn't know. We can talk the hind legs off a donkey. We'll talk to anybody about anything. And if I bump into another Irish person, we'll have 50 conversations in the space of 1 minute. And everybody else is looking by going, what happened there? So that is there, in me, built in with me. But from the very first day I ever picked up a camera, I realized I needed to speak to the people and talk to them and not just point a piece of machinery basically at them. So I treat every single person I photograph, no matter what it is, and I have actually photographed presidents and kings,
Yeah.
is
Wow.
to just they're my friend and it's my body, that's so it's not that I'm putting it on, it's just that's what it feels like. It's like my body came into the studio, or I'm photographing somebody quite important, but they're my friend. So I don't feel like they're above
Yeah.
me or I'm above them. We're all the same. We're
Yeah.
just hanging out to do this thing together. Um, and I really feel a photograph has failed if the personality doesn't come through. I think that for me would be really sad.
I love it. You get someone off the high street and, it's like, hey, come on in, mate. Then you're doing the same thing when,
Yeah.
you're having a royal member of the family turning around saying, come on in, mate.
Well, I have
I love
photographed
that.
King Charles, but he was Prince Charles then, but that was just at
Yeah,
a
yeah.
thing, and he was charm
Well,
itself.
still, that's amazing. So tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that experience. I mean, like that's pretty unique.
Yeah, I suppose it's probably a lot of press photographers have done that, but it was a thing at the Irish Embassy actually. I got called in last minute to photograph it, and he was there, and a lot of Irish dignitaries, a lot of famous Irish people. And it was very interesting to see how he worked, how a proper professional works the room. He was amazing, actually. I was very impressed, and I'm
Yeah.
from a republic,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
he
we
was
won't go down that
no, I
rabbit
know, but
hole.
my mother would have been like, "Oh my God!" But
God,
anyway, he
yeah.
was fabulous, and I enjoyed it. And I got the picture on the front of the Irish Independent the next day.
Oh,
So,
amazing.
uh,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
so it was cool. And there's been a few people like that are interested, and it's fascinating to watch these guys who have had a million cameras in their faces. I'm really killed to photograph someone like that on a one-to-one
Yeah.
basis.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
never
But I
know,
mean,
but
it's still impressive at an event as well.
yeah, because you don't get
Yeah.
much time, and the
Mm.
I did get a dig in the ribs from somebody at one point because I got too close. So yeah.
Oh, Oh, the protocol.
Yeah,
Um,
like, come
so
get her up.
so what inspires you, Jackie? What kind of, motivates you as a photographer?
Well, what inspires me is faces,
Yeah,
stories. Everyone has a story. You can
yeah.
walk up to
Love that.
anybody outside my window now. There's two people walking by, and they both have very interesting, different stories. So they will have. And light. I mean, I know it sounds a little bit pretentious, but light really inspires me. And I love to see how a light falls on someone's face, even if I'm sitting on the bus, and I can see a shadow kind of coming across. I love all that. That's how I see is patterns of light. But so that's really what inspires me. Just normal, kind of just looking
Yeah.
at light every day, and then people's faces and wanting to know their stories. If I wasn't a photographer, I would have liked to have been a journalist. So there's that side of
Mm.
that there that's inquisitive. I'm
Mm.
nosy. So I am very
Uh,
nosy. So
uh,
I want to kind of know everything. And I feel your eyes are what shows you who you are. So if I am photographing you and there are no words with it, I never put words with, I see photographers who do it really, really well, who put words, long,
mm,
detailed paragraphs about the image, or even might not be about the image at all, but maybe a story that goes with it. I never want to do that because I really want it to be just the image that tells the
mm,
story, because that's what
mm,
inspired me in the first place. But yeah, so
mm,
that's what inspires me. Other photographers, of course, there's some amazing photographers that I love and that I go back to. Old movies, definitely old movies, because I feel like they were really
mm.
discovering something so new. So Alfred Hitchcock and things like that. I just would, I like, I can't believe the stuff he did. So yeah, I love old movies, love old films because they really played with light and shadow and so well. It's such a different process to how it's done now, which of course is amazing too. But I think they were working with much more basic equipment, so it's fascinating to see how they do it. And me and my mum used to watch all movies together, so it's a thing that I have. That's a nice memory. So that's what inspires me.
Hmm. So on the topic of light, like explain to me and obviously the audience, like what's your setup techniques and can you share anything in terms of advice?
Yeah, I mean it's been trial and error because I was a natural light photographer for many years. So my lighting setup really comes from trying to match a window is probably where I first came from because the first studio that I had was working in had no natural light. So we were I had to try and mimic natural light because that's what I was comfortable with. So that's where I kind of came from. I mean, I still shoot natural light, but I generally shoot much more studio light because I can control it more. But yeah, so I tend to work with one very large softbox, which is over there. And then I will have another fill light either bumping into or shooting into a whiteboard or against a white wall behind me, sometimes a third light. So sometimes it's one light, sometimes it's two lights, sometimes it's three lights. More often than not, two. And it's very simple. I'm not a flashy photographer. Like I'm not somebody who's going to be doing complicated things. It's just not me. I think I've tried it and it just doesn't suit me. Maybe I'm not good at it. But yeah, it's simple. Simple is good for me
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not as intimidating maybe for the client.
Do you find that you have to do a completely different lighting setup on sort of like location shoots versus your studio, and how does that
Yeah,
work for
I
you?
mean, I wish I could have, like, if I was doing a headshot session outside, which I do, or like go to a company. There's only so much space you have and so much room. Also, if you've got to bring stuff on the tube and all of that. So you have to really pare it down for that. And you can definitely make that work really well. So I have different equipment. So I use Godox stuff that's portable, really portable. And I have to make the whole setup small. I still can't make it small enough. It's still too heavy usually to carry, but I do my best. I wish I could come to the studio and bring or someone's office and bring all the gear with me, but it's just not really practical.
No, no. So on a topic of subjects, often one of photographers' greatest challenges is nervous,
Mm.
subjects. Someone that they want to get this done as a client.
Mm.
They've come asked you, but like, how do you approach it? What are some things that you do to sort of help your client calm their nerves?
Chat, just have a chat. As soon as they come in, we're just chatting and catching up. Um, That's the most important thing. Give them a cup of tea, ask them about their day. Don't rush them in front of the lens. That would be horrible. I'd hate that. So it
Yeah.
really is conversation, finding out, maybe asking them if they've had other photography experiences, make them laugh. The second you make somebody laugh, it becomes, you break the ice. If I'm tethering, I'll show them a great shot. I really like to flatter, and I don't mean like I'm not doing it falsely. If I see something great, I get quite excited. So that resonates with them, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, she's excited. That's great." So they tell me that later that they like that when they saw I got excited about a shot. So I'll be like, "Oh my God, look at this! You look amazing." So like, show them a shot that you love, that you kind of hope will flatter, because sometimes that someone has insecurities, so you don't want to like kind of show them a shot that's going to play into their insecurities, because that can happen. I have had that happen,
Mm.
where somebody spotted the very first test shot when I was tethering, and she didn't like what she saw in herself, and it made the shoot sort of go like the wrong way. So you really need to be in control of that. So make sure the first image they see is amazing, and that they feel confident in themselves, and they feel like
Yeah.
that you are in it with them, and you believe in them, and that you care about this, I mean, because I genuinely do, that you care what they look like and how they feel. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
It
it's
sounds
it's
like you kind of connect with them. You're sort of like a builder of confidence before
yeah,
someone comes in, particularly with
yeah.
nerves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and everyone's
Yeah.
nervous. I mean, even people who've been very, very experienced of being photographed are still nervous, because,
Yeah.
and a lot of people say, and they kind of say, "Oh God, I feel like my lip is going like that." They get the twitchy, which I can't see, but they'll tell me, and I think that's really sweet when they tell me that, because that's been quite vulnerable then, and then we'll
Mm.
joke about
Yeah.
that, and we have it, So it's human nature to be nervous. So you just got to take your time and don't ignore it. Address it if you have to.
Yeah. So now, like, obviously, you're trying to support your client, but how do you kind of get sort of what's your preparedness to get ready for a shoot? How do you basically get ready for your clients mentally? Because you've got to bring all that energy and
Yeah.
kind of coach them as well. So how do you do that?
I mean, for preparing for a shoot for me is be well rested, be calm. Don't bring any stresses in with you, because we all have stresses, whether it's company, running your business and what have you. Take your time to sort of, if you just kind of bring yourself down into a place where they're paying you. So you want to be very present with them. So don't be distracted. Um, I'll often maybe just take time out just before the shoot and just look at other images and things that I like and
Mm.
things that have inspired me. Sometimes that's even my own images, because I'll think, "Oh yeah, I did that. That's really nice." And you kind of
It's just boosting your own self
just
up as you
to
begin the
remind
process.
myself I can
Yeah.
do it. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, just take your time and be prepared very much. If you're prepared for a shoot, it's going to start off in such a good way. If you're
Mm.
not prepared and you think, "Oh no, God, what if I just spent half an hour getting that set up a bit better?" It would have made all the difference. So don't ever give yourself any regrets about what you should have done for the shoot. So just be really ready, and think about it the night before, and make a list, and think, what you want to do. Think about the information that you've already got from them, what you can do.
Mm.
I also will try, of course, I'm going to look them up on social media and get an idea of, what I will, of course, I'm only human. If they're not on
Yeah.
it,
I mean, you want to know your client, right? Mhm.
yeah. So I want to see their look and what have you. So yeah, I'll prepare that way as well and find out as much as I can about them. I mean, there's an intake form when they book, so I've asked them quite a
Mm.
lot of
Yeah.
information at that point as well.
Yeah. So we're coming to the end of it all, but one of the things
Alrighty.
that we definitely want to kind of talk to you about, and obviously let members know, is like why do headshots matter? What is and what impact do you believe a professional headshot can give a person, or an individual brand? Because I know you
Mm,
do a lot of branding
yeah.
photography as well. So tell me a little bit about that. Why do headshots matter, and your perspective on it?
I think headshots matter because for me, the most important thing that I always think of and talk to my clients about is that they show that you have invested in yourself before you're asking other people to invest in you one way or the other. It shows you care, that that you've put yourself first and foremost in your company, and your brand is important, and how you put yourself across is important. If I go on a website and there's an awful picture of the business owner just said, for any kind of particular thing, I just, I'm not really thinking about it, but it doesn't, it maybe makes me feel a bit about the company. So I feel if you've just spent time invested in that, then it's important. We're all scrolling all day long. We're all looking at a million things. So you really do need to stand out. You need to stand out in a professional way. We all have to look professional. So I think they matter. They also matter in preserving a time in your life. If you are running a business, just say you're a lone entrepreneur and you're running this business, it's amazing to be able to look back at that and to say, well, that was me in year 5, and wow, that was me in my 30s. Now I'm in my 40s. Obviously, and then there's actors' headshots, which have their own huge importance. But I really believe headshots are as important for a lot of other businesses as they are to actors. So yeah, I think investing in them is very, very important. Of course, I would think that, but I genuinely believe that it says a lot about you.
Yeah, and I really find it interesting that you also kind of take note about the sort of capturing a moment in time. It's a memory, but
Mm.
you're creating that experience. Has anybody provided you with that kind of feedback of how you kind of like um, you kind of give them an opportunity where you're capturing them, like, and then sort of retelling their history over time? Is there any clients that you've had that
Yeah, because
opportunity
I've
to work
had
with?
I've had clients over the years, 4 years, like so we will touch base and think, well, I have actually I've had some corporate clients who, I first did a job with them when there was 2 of them, and now I'm doing a job when there's 20 in their company, and that's really impressive. And they've said to me that I've been part of the journey because I've recorded that for them, which is incredible, really. And I was really chuffed to hear that. As well as individuals who I photographed over time, and they would say, "Oh, remember that? That was before I got married and had kids, and now here we are." So there's all those important times. There's also, you know, somebody messaged me the other day. They had lost 2 friends to cancer last year, and they realized I had taken a photograph of those 2 people speaking to each other at an event. I mean, I have no memory of it. And they sent it to me and they said, "This is such a precious memory. We have this." And this person didn't know that they had spoken at this event. So things like that, as a photographer, you are recording things that nobody else is ever going to record. It's a witness to people's lives, really, and that's an amazing
Yeah.
privilege.
Well, I love that you bring that to your experience as a headshot and branding photographer. I think that that's certainly something that, in my time, speaking with you today, but also kind of our continued sort of opportunities to work together. I love that you bring that sort of that honor to being a photographer and enjoying that experience with clients. Um,
Right.
well, Jackie, I really, really appreciate your time today, and I know members of Headshots Matter really do enjoy hearing from different photographers from
Yeah.
around the world. Thank you so much for speaking to us in Brighton,
Thank
and
you.
I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. And thanks to Headshot Matters. I get a lot from it. Amazing little, not little, quite big now, community. And it really, the help I get and the conversations we have are really invaluable. So thanks,
Well,
guys.
thank you so much, and have a great day, and enjoy the rest of the week.
I will. And you. Thanks,
Thank
Barry.
you. Bye.